Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you for joining to the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, joined today by my fantastic sidekick, Sasha. How is it going?
Hello, everyone. I'm fantastic, just recovering from a long, extended 4th of July week and weekend. So I'm great.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, it's just been flying by, seriously. And I'm so glad that we were able to regroup, connect, meet up with each other, as well as with some guests. And I know I say this every time, but I have a super special guest today. In fact, on screen, it kind of looks like a Sasha sandwich. It's Michelle on two ends and Sasha in the middle. And I think it's a pretty good look. I don't know.
It is a good look. It is also kind of comical to think that I have two Michelles next to me who have very similar features and are wearing the exact same vibrant penny blue.
It's funny. Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves before introducing Michelle Johnson, known to me as Michelle Reiner. We've been friends since 5th grade. So hello, my friend. Thank you for coming on to have a conversation with us. What's going on in the great state of California today?
Hey, good morning. So just got back from a trip to Oregon. I went for a quick trip this weekend to work at an Ironman event, and I'm working at my licensed in-home daycare. So I have kids in class right now with my assistant, just busy working and living the dream.
I love that. Well, that is why I wanted to have this conversation on the podcast, because you have been running a licensed daycare for 25 years. Congratulations on that. That in itself is amazing. And one thing you and I have talked about many, many times over the last few years is what our kids are being fed. And I'd love to talk about it from a mom's perspective, which both you and Sasha are, but then also as a daycare provider perspective, and just the things that you've seen along the way, the journey that you've been on with your own nutrition, and how you incorporate that into what you're teaching the kids that come to your program, and maybe, a few tips that we can offer other moms or, other daycare providers if they happen to be listening. So if you will, just kind of give the thumbnail sketch of how you grew up, and then fast forward into operating your own daycare, and we'll just go from there.
Sure. So I grew up in Wisconsin, as you know, in the Midwest. Growing up, just to talk a little bit about the nutrition, growing up with my family, my mom is sitting here in the background. It was really important for us to have sit-down family meals. Like, that was just a family value that we always had to come together for supper time and have a family meal. And my mom always had us eating vegetables and chicken, a lot of chicken and spaghetti. But family meals were really important. And then also another thing that speaks to me from my childhood was my mom was big into gardening and planting, and so was my grandma. So it took some years of me living to finally get it, but that's one of the things I'll talk about later that I do with the kids. And I think it's because I had that growing up, that introduction, that I can do that now. And then so I grew up in Wisconsin. I was in gymnastics for a few years. I ran track. I did cheerleading. I was just active, really active. Joined the Air Force at 18. I was in the Air Force for 8 years, security forces, so pretty active there. Had my first son when I was 25, got out of the military, and I started in-home daycare, thinking I would do that for maybe 4 or 5 years, and 25 years later, I'm still doing it.
That's pretty incredible. Sasha, I feel like you have a question.
I have a lot. And so Iron Man, you said you tell me a little bit about your relationship with Ironman. Do you participate in it? Do you have a loved one that participates in it? When do you train? If you do participate, what's that look like?
Oh, it looks a little crazy. So, my fitness journey. So like I said, I was in the Air Force, got out, became a mom. I would like walk and go to the gym and stuff sometimes, but no crazy fitness. I feel like kind of what I do right now is a little bit extreme, but I went through a divorce and just became kind of sedentary and a little bit of, I'm sure, depression and just life changes. And I started running just to help me cope with that. So previous to my real running journey and my triathlon journey, I did one half marathon. I think my youngest son was maybe 5, and I said I would never do another half marathon again. I was done. Like, that one half marathon killed me. Well, about 15 years later, I started running, and I had a year of half marathons where I probably did, I don't know, 4 or 5 half marathons. The next year I started doing marathons. One of my clients at the time was a cyclist, so they were trying to get me to bike, telling me how much I'd love it. She was a big part of my journey. She was a nurse, and she was pregnant with her second child, and she let me borrow her bike. She's like, just take my bike, borrow my bike. And I was hooked on the biking aspect, and I knew how to swim because I learned how to swim as a kid. I had been a lifeguard, but I hadn't swam for probably 20 some years and never competitively. But I started swimming, so I signed up for my first triathlon around 2013, and it was a women's fitness festival weekend put on locally here by a group called Total Body Fitness. They're very active in the community with triathlon, but I did one little triathlon and I was hooked. And so from there, that was 2013. From there, I began just upping it. I'm really competitive with myself, so I'm like, well, if I did a sprint triathlon, now I can do the next one, which was an Olympic distance. Then I went on to half Ironman, so I had a couple years of those. And then I've done 5 full Ironmans. And now I also volunteer with the Ironman Foundation, and I got certified to be an official. So that's kind of a quick nutshell of that.
It's quite impressive that you really dug deep into that, like at the age of 40.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah. And I know you're not going to stop this. So I imagine you're going to be that 79-year-old who's just finished her full distance Ironman. And I feel like we could have a whole other conversation on the fitness journey and how that really shaped your life and played a huge role as, like you said, coming out of a divorce and just trying to figure life out in a new phase, and how exercise and fitness and the community that you get from being part of something like the Ironman, I think is also a huge piece of that. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, definitely the community. I say that all the time. Yeah.
Well, and I think this actually segues into nutrition, because nutrition, when you're, running maybe 5 miles a day or working out at the gym or doing your 30 minutes of cardio or going for a walk, very, very, very different than when you are training for an Ironman. Right. So how personally did your nutrition change and evolve? And then let's go into how that maybe played a role in what you do with the kids at your daycare.
Yeah. So before I started doing a lot of training for Ironman distance, I didn't really look at food as fuel. And so now I look at food as fuel. And someone once shared with me, like, if you had a really nice sports car, you're not going to put the cheap gas into the tank because it's going to just run horribly. And our bodies are kind of the same way. If we put junk in, we're not going to get the best results coming out with like energy, with with my job, with what I do too, it takes a lot of energy and I never really stop. So eating nutritious food is really important. So probably previous to doing this, I wasn't as fixated on nutrition, but it's definitely been a progress, a journey.
As it always is. And how about even just raising your own kids? Like how did you bring what you learned growing up into that? And how has it changed? I mean, you and I grew up in the same era, right? When fat is the devil. If you eat fat, you'll get fat. So,
Right.
Did you buy into that message, and then how did you maybe shift your mindset out of that?
Um, yeah, I mean, definitely younger. Like right, you didn't eat butter and stuff. You had to eat margarine and all this fake stuff. So now I'm coming back to that a lot thanks to you, and PFF is your BFF, and I've done some of the workshops with you, and I actually use a lot of that now with my meal planning with the kids. I know we've talked a little bit about that in our conversations. But with my own kids, I mean, by no means was I perfect. I was like the frazzled. I didn't know what the heck I was doing mom. So there was a lot of times where, we might eat out, probably not as much as other people, but when you're on the go, it's like easy to just eat out and grab something. Just talking about the differences between how we grew up and then even with my kids, like I had hit on how family meals were important. And one of the things that drove me crazy, and I see it all the time right now, is that sport events for young kids are going into like evenings and meal times. And so with my boys, even, it was really hard to try to have a family meal because they would have baseball practice or football practice until like 7 o'clock at night. So I had to get creative on how I could pick them up from school and feed them something that would like get them through mealtime, but then really feed them another meal and it's late. So that kind of annoyed me. And as a parent, I never felt like you really don't have a voice with the coaches on what time they're doing their practices. But that did annoy me. But I did try to feed my kids healthy, just having that foundation with fruits and vegetables. It's a big thing.
Well, I think that's a universal challenge. Even when I was in gymnastics, I mean, practice was after school, right? So it's from 4 to 7. So I ate a lot of dinner in the car because it's a 30-minute drive home and I'm not going to wait till I get home at 8 o'clock at night to eat. So yeah, it is one of those conundrums we find ourselves in because obviously fitness is good, sports are great, and yet we also have to nourish ourselves properly. But there are ways that we can still do the best we can in the real lives that we live so that we don't have to succumb to fast food or starving and then eating dinner at 9 o'clock at night. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that at the end here. Sasha, any questions, comments, ideas?
I was trying to think back of when I was in the rush of after school, and I don't even know. This is going to sound so terrible. I don't even know if I ate.
That's actually normal.
But it wasn't an intentional,
right.
I'm not eating because I don't have time. I'm pretty sure when you said, making sure my boys are eating all this stuff, I was more worried about getting quote unquote fat, even though I was an incredible athlete. It makes me feel guilty to think about the things that I've put my body through. So yeah, food is fuel, 100%. I don't even think I was fueling myself. I don't even think I allowed myself to eat because I was so petrified of gaining weight as a kid in high school, as a kid in college. And so that's where my brain was when you were saying, we're not sitting down for mealtime. I don't even think I sat down for meals because I was just so afraid.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big difference between boys and girls for sure. I still today have many friends who have, adolescent and teenage girls, and I talk to them and they don't eat either. And it is an issue and it is something that needs to be addressed. And I think just the education about food as fuel, and, you and I have had conversations on this podcast even about that. And it is a hard thing to wrap your head around because on the one hand, you need to put like Michelle said, the proper fuel in your body if you want to operate properly. But depending on the sport and how that looks, it could go a number of ways for sure.
I would say, like, going off what Sasha said, because you're kind of talking about like what message, and this is what I think of as an educator, what message are we giving kids at a young age about food, exercise, and their body? So obviously girls have different challenges than boys as they go through junior high school, those college years that are so formative. So I really try to give the kids positive messages about their bodies, their activities, and just exposing them to different food, nutritional values, and things like that, and why it's important. Because I think, like Michelle said earlier too, that fat was the devil, and like some of these different messages that we've heard, we hold on to, but they're really not right. And so we need to like reprogram ourselves and educate ourselves so we can educate the little kids so they don't grow up with those same messages.
So do you mind telling me what is the ages that you currently oversee?
So I'm licensed for infants. I can take kids up to 10. My house backs up to a school, so I have a lot of kids that I get when they're infants, like 4 or 5 months. And then I have them until they're 8, usually 8 years old, coming here after school, which is pretty neat that I can keep the kids and those families in my program that long.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And what, how many children do you get to oversee, or do you currently have in your program?
I'm licensed for 14 kids. That's a large license in California, and I have 12.
That's incredible. And you had mentioned that gardening was a really big part of your childhood. I didn't necessarily garden that much because I had extreme OCD, and so like the dirt in my hand, it would like super bother me. But my great aunt, who is my mentor, my guardian angel, she actually gardened a lot. She's the reason why I love vegetables, every single vegetable. She was a vegetarian. She had a beautiful, large garden in her backyard with every single thing you could think of. And so when you said that to me, it's not like a heartbreak, right? Like my heart isn't sad, but it definitely made my heart go, oh my gosh, I miss that woman. I miss my Tia Emma. So tell me a little bit about your gardening program that you currently have.
Yeah. Well, just how you were talking about sensory things, a lot of kids do have sensory issues, and you see that at a young age too. Like there are kids that I have in my program that do not want to get their hands dirty. So I think even exposing them, in small doses to that from like young toddlerhood is just really good. So we get to do that in the garden, and a lot of times the kids will watch the other kids doing it, and then they're like, oh well, they're touching a worm, so I guess it's safe, right? There's a lot of peer support and education that goes on that I don't even have to do anything. But in the garden right now, we have growing like tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelons, pumpkins, strawberries. So really, if I get one strawberry, I'm happy because the kids can see it and eat it. But we've gotten a lot more. But the kids are learning like the life cycle. So we're incorporating science. We do life cycle. They're getting sensory. We do songs with it, books. But the kids get to plant the seeds, watch them grow. So you can show a child a book, and all they're gonna know is like an apple is red and flat. But if you give them an apple or you give them a strawberry that they're growing, they can see it, use all their senses, right? They can see it, touch it, feel it, taste it, smell it. And so you're incorporating all those senses into the learning, and it really helps them, I think, get the bigger lessons because they're incorporating all their senses.
And then additionally, they probably have so much pride when you do serve them that food.
Yeah, last year, we didn't do it this year, but last year we planted snap peas. We eat outside a lot because I'm in California, so I have tables all over outside. But last year we grew snap peas on a fence right behind the tables they eat. So they would just sit at the tables and start picking off like the sugar snap peas and eating them. And if I had like gotten them out of the refrigerator and put them on their plate, they'd probably be like, I don't want to try it. But since they saw it growing in that, they ate it. Even with like tomatoes, some kids don't like tomatoes, but they'll see something red growing on a plant and they'll pick it and put it in their mouth, and you can just watch, as the like cherry tomato burst and all those senses are triggered, and if they like it, they'll eat it, and if not, they spit it out. But they're being exposed to it and they're trying.
When I think that's such a big piece of it, right? Because I know I've worked with a lot of parents who struggle themselves to eat vegetables. And if I, as a parent, am not eating them, I'm probably not exposing my kids to it either. Even though I think by now most people know that these are good foods and they're really good to get the nutrients and all of that, it's still real life and it's hard to do. So have you seen just over the course of your time and doing this, that instilling some of these thoughts and ideas and the excitement and the education in the kids, has that translated into any change of behavior in the parents, or that the kids are now eating more vegetables at home because of what you're doing with them during the daycare?
Yeah. So what you're talking about, exposing kids to food and then what we eat, that's called modeling behavior. So as teachers or parents, kids are watching us all the time. They're very smart. They're awesome observers, and they're watching us. So if we're not eating the food or we're saying anything negative about it, they're picking up on that. Because of the way I eat in my lifestyle, like I usually have a plate of raw veggies out. So I'll have carrots, snap peas, tomatoes, cucumbers, sweet peppers the kids love. So I usually have a tray, and talking about the nutrition standards. So we have to offer fruits and vegetables. But I know if I have a plate with four different vegetables on it, every kid is going to like at least one of the vegetables. They just do. So with the parents, oftentimes the parents I will either communicate with them what their kids ate, how much they liked it, and they're shocked. Or I've even had parents come back and they're like, oh my gosh, our kids were asking for broccoli at dinner last night. We had no idea they like broccoli. I'm like, they eat broccoli all the time. So communicating with their parents what their kids are eating, and like I'll even take pictures and videos, because I think sometimes parents don't believe, they're the teachers or the educators. I mean, they want to believe us, but like my kid would never eat a cucumber at home. So I'll share videos and pictures too of what their kids are doing.
Yeah. I love that. And you and I just talked the other day too about, the other foods that I think we should have a healthy relationship with food. Sasha and I have talked a lot about that, how neither of us did. And both of us still, we have those challenges carry us through adulthood. So how are you getting the message to the kids about the balance of our choices? What does that look like? Because I'm not going to pretend, and you're not going to pretend, that you just serve them all things that you grow in your yard and, you raise your own chickens. And I mean, that's not what's happening here, right? There's still real life happening here. So tell me how you incorporate the elements of real life into, what you do with the kids.
Yeah. So really behavior and then messaging. So there's different times we have celebrations, or we'll make cookies, for example. So I like getting the kids involved, whether it's with growing their garden or healthy foods, serving themselves, and they'll help me in the kitchen. So they like making cookies. So when we have cookies, we often have the conversation that a cookie is a treat. It's not the norm. And I'll ask the kids, like, if we ate cookies all day long for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, how would we feel? And they're like, oh, we would feel horrible. We would feel sick. And I'm like, that's right. It's okay to eat. It's okay to eat foods that we label junk food or not really so nutritious, as long as it's in balance. Because you're talking about messaging again. And if you just tell someone that like sugar and cookies and things like that are horrible, don't eat it. In my experience, for me alone, if you tell me I can't have something, I'm going to eat the whole box. which I normally wouldn't do. So, yeah, I just think it's good to let kids know it's okay to eat sweets or junk food or McDonald's. I'm not even edit that out. Like, no, it's not okay even to eat it, but they're going to. So, okay, do it in balance.
So there are a lot of things that I've picked up on modeling behavior. My daughter has autism. Those are things that, and I went to school, undergrad psychology. I am not a master in it by any means, but there are a lot of key words or phrases that you have said to make me believe that you are an educated woman. Knowing that you went from 18 years old right into the military, you did 8 years of active service, which thank you very much for your service to this country and to all of us, provide us the freedom that we have today. Knowing that you did that and then jumped right into childcare, where did all this beautiful brain work come from? Like, you're an educated woman. You sound like a well-balanced individual who, of course, you have had trials, tribulations. You've gone through some hard stuff, a divorce, all these things. But at the end of it, you've maintained yourself. You have set a standard for yourself, your better being standard. And now you are giving that on to the next generation to hopefully be able to plant those seeds for more and more generations to come. Where did this come from? Did this come from your mom? Did this come from, did you take a university course online? Where did you read Michelle's book? Where did all this come from?
I did do all of that. No, it's a good question. I always say life is a journey, right? Didn't happen overnight. Many trial and errors. I often say it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from it. No one's perfect, and by no means am I perfect at all. I always like to, I don't like to settle. I always like to try to improve and look for ways. My dog's trying to say hi. Look for ways to improve. So I've done tons of classes, workshops, college. I partner with our local Office of Education with early childhood education. So every year I'm doing about 25 hours of professional development. And I just keep trying to push myself further with just education and knowledge or getting information. Like, yes, I've done Michelle's University and I have the book, and we've had lots of conversations and just seeking knowledge. And, I think a lot of times as adults, teachers, parents, we all want to act like we know all of it with kids. A lot of times we want to act like we know everything, but we don't. And so it's really good to be honest with the kids and say, I don't know, but let's learn together. So I was sharing with Michelle last week, I started this worm composting thing. I didn't know anything about worm composting. So I told the kids we're going to learn about this together. And so it's fun. So one of my tips would be whatever you're doing with the kids, make it fun. If it's not fun, they're not going to want to do it. And most likely neither are you, right? Just like eating vegetables, if you don't really like certain foods we just don't care for, try to find a fun way to incorporate it. So one of my tips too is, plating food. Like if you go to a 5-star restaurant, the way they plate the food looks amazing and you just want to dive into it. And you can do the same with kids. You can take raw veggies and put them on a plate and make a smiley face or sunshine or some type of animal. And then they're like, ooh, we get to eat a sunshine on our plate today. So just have fun. Life's a journey.
I am going to interject, and I'm going to say thank you for what you do with those kids. You know what I mean? The interactions that you have with them, the way that you just have a very sprightly spirit. You are making such a difference and such an impact in who they are and who they're going to grow up to be. And it is absolutely beautiful. And the state of California is lucky to have you. If only we could replicate you, we could make you a franchise and clone you and put you everywhere. That would be incredible.
Sasha, it's as if you've eavesdropped on Michelle's and my conversations over the last few weeks because, I said to her too, yeah, they are very lucky, but there are thousands and thousands of daycares in the world that don't get Michelle Johnson, right?
Yeah, and if there was a program to even say this is, or I don't know, just like the worm compost, like that's super cool. I don't know if do you have a very large backyard? Do you live on an acreage? When I think of a person living in California, I think of, right? Like on top of each other. Whereas here in Nebraska, I have an acreage. So what does that look like for your living situation?
I would love to have an acreage. I don't. My house is 1,300 square feet ish, and my whole garage is converted to my classroom. And then my entire yard is fenced in, so it's not a big yard, but we're able to utilize the space. So that's a learning process. Like for the space I have, what grows where, because some of the parts of the yard are shaded, some's like full sun, and today it's going to be 104. So it's a journey, a process every year of like, where can we plant things, what's going to grow. That didn't work. But no, I do not have an acre at all.
But I think even just to the point of, you and I, Michelle, have talked about like a template, right? The blueprint of educating in a holistic way and making this time that the kids are at daycare a time of learning. I know when I was in college in Hawaii, I did some after school care stuff as a job. And I mean, we were in Hawaii and we didn't do that kind of stuff. And that would have been so amazing and so easy. But what do we do on a rainy day? Oh, we stick the kids inside and we watch a movie. Yeah. Growing up, I mean, the cold, harsh winters in Nebraska and Wisconsin, right? So, and I know it's a very overwhelming job, right? To take care of little kids. There's a whole different dynamic, lots of energy, lots of different personalities. And yet, maybe if we do change the thought process and instill these habits, but one of the reasons that you are successful is because this is your lifestyle. Not every daycare provider or person who works at a daycare lives this lifestyle. And it's very difficult to teach it and model it when you're not doing it. So do you have a message maybe for people who are there and are imprinting on little kids? Is there any words of wisdom you can share with them?
I would say just even if you start small, you don't have to you could live have a tiny home, or if you're in a small classroom, you can grow seeds in Ziploc bags and hang them in the window, or just have a plant in the classroom. If that's all it is, they're still being exposed. But I would just say start small, and anything is better than nothing. And don't be afraid to try and to just let the kids know, I'm learning this with you.
You don't have to be a triathlete to instill activity into the kids, to move their bodies, right? I mean, there's so many ways to get kids moving so that we don't think exercise is punishment, because in a lot of ways that is what it's used for. It's used as punishment. Or we take away exercise, right? If you're naughty, well, you have to stay inside. You can't go out to recess. I don't even know if recess is a thing anymore. I know it was when we were growing up, but I know PE and recess and all those things in a lot of places have kind of bit the dust. So, we take away these things that humans need, whether it's because of budget cuts or, because we're going to punish you. And yet, I mean, you're punishing yourself when you don't allow a kid to move their body as well.
Yeah, which we could have. I mean, I could probably talk all day on many different topics, but definitely I don't work in the elementary school system, but I have, a lot of my kids that go, and just my own kids. And like nowadays, we have all these different behavioral issues with young children. Why? I know there's lots of reasons why. But like Michelle just mentioned, you're reducing their outside time. Like kids learn through movement. Kids cannot sit still. So expecting, the kids in my age group, like 3 to 5 year olds, I know they can't sit still. So I'm not going to try to force them to sit still. So what we're going to do is we're going to be moving, and it's fun and it resonates with them. And so that's like a whole nother topic too, about movement and education in the elementary system. But yeah, kids need to move. We do a lot of walks.
Do you notice,
like the kids we walk every day?
Do you notice any difference in like the kids' behavior and energy levels when, they're eating a certain way versus not eating? Like, does a parent ever drop the kid off and say, oh, they ate a bunch of junk last night, or yeah, we just grabbed some donuts on the way here.
Yeah.
Like any correlations that you can see, from information that you've gleaned from the parents?
Yeah. I mean, there are times that they're having the donuts and the chocolate milk. I mean, even soda. So with that, the kids will be a little bit more high energy level, a little crazy. And then usually they crash, right? And they might get whiny. Or the other aspect is if they're showing up hungry, so being in tune to that too. I know Sasha mentioned like there was times she didn't eat, and there are a lot of kids too that don't eat. So I tell all my clients, we always provide breakfast, whether they ate at home or not. I have, a healthy breakfast to start the day. But yeah, and sometimes Mondays are a little bit more chaotic, different energy levels because they're coming off the weekend and out of their routines and what they've ate and sleep patterns, and all of that's affected by nutrition.
Yeah. And PFF is your BFF no matter how old you are, right? Mm-hmm. Protein, fat, fiber, it's about steady blood sugar. So parents, I'm telling you, number one, if you haven't embraced PFF as your BFF, please do that. Number two, this is equally as important for your kids because steady blood sugar is the key to life, every human life. And the spikes and crashes are really what we want to avoid because, just like you don't have energy and you feel grumpy and you get tired and you can't think when you haven't eaten properly. Well, your little humans are being affected in that same way. So how have you incorporated that, Michelle, into the snacks and meals? And do you actually teach the kids like, okay, this food has protein and here's why we need protein? Like how deep do you get? I know they're very young, but I think you're right. We underestimate how smart they are.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Kids are super smart. So one of the best ways to teach a kid is to ask them questions. Don't sit a kid down and just talk for an hour, right? Just ask them questions because you can do a whole curriculum lesson that day just off of their questions. But yeah, we do. So like if we're eating tomatoes, I'm like, why do you think tomatoes are good for us? What do you think they do? Oh, they give us muscles. They build our bones. They're telling me different things. So we'll start talking about cheese or milk, yogurt. Where does it come from? What's in it? What part of our body does it affect? So we do. The kids are really smart. They know most of the answers to that, even like a 3 and 4 year old. Or like I was talking earlier about the peer education that happens. So I'm lucky because I have mixed ages. So I've had kids from infancy who are now 5, and then I'll ask the questions, and my little 3-year-old might answer, and then the 5-year-old will be like, well, no, chicken's good because it has protein in it, and so they'll just take over the whole lesson, which is really cool too. But yeah, pretty much I would say a good majority of our meals, we're talking about what we're eating to some level. And earlier,
I mean, making that connection is something that really ingrains in, and it makes it real. Like, and even when I was trying to figure out nutrition, don't just tell me what to eat because it's good for you. I want to know why. What exactly is this doing for me? And when I understand that connection, well, then it's a lot easier to eat it and to recognize why I need to eat it. And I think getting kids involved sooner rather than later is only going to help them in the future. One thing I do want to touch on, because Michelle, the guidelines and the things that you're required to serve, and how even the requirements are, ugh. I mean, I have a whole philosophy on why these are the requirements. That's a other conversation, but tell us, and I know some of it is federal, some of it is probably California guidelines, but what are you required? And then show how you can get away with meeting the requirements, but it's still like a bag of garbage.
Right. So yes, I partner with a federal food program. I'm required to in my program. So they have the different components required. It's going to be like a vegetable, fruit or vegetable, a grain, protein, and milk. And it has changed because I've been doing this for 25 years. So you and I have kind of talked in a different conversation, like, French fries and chicken nuggets were considered okay, or sugar cereal or yogurts that have a higher sugar content. So there are some things that have changed that have improved. Now you have to do a plain yogurt. You can add the fruit to try to reduce some of the sugar. But for snacks, like, components can change. You just have to serve 2 components, which I usually do more than what's required. I could serve like milk and a whole wheat muffin, right? And then I'll look at that and say, like, where's the fiber in that? Because I do the PFF with the kids now. So I'll look at what I'm serving, and I'll often add something into it, a third component, to get the PFF with the kids.
I think you were telling me that during COVID, they had like the box meals,
so I was just
lunches.
say,
Tell us that story, because this was jaw dropping to me.
Yeah. So there's certain requirements we have for the little ones, birth to 5. And I don't know how the school system operates. I'm not an expert on that. But during COVID, the kids could walk over there and get their snack and lunch for the day. So I had kids that would participate in that for a very short time, because we were getting the meal, the bag, and I would open it, and I added up all the sugar grams one day, and it had 100 grams of sugar for 2 meals, for like a breakfast and a snack, or a lunch and a snack. And, like, what's the daily requirement? 25. It's not even
for an adult. I'm not even sure what it is for a kid, but the upper recommended limit for an adult is like 30 to 40 grams.
Yeah. And it had 100 grams, and that was consistently. It was like apple juice, like some type of cinnamon Danish roll, fruit. Nothing was, well, there's never a vegetable. It was always like apple slices or something like that. But yeah, it was really high in sugar, processed food. Yeah. So that to me is crazy. I don't know why the program is different between early childhood and school agers, but there's a definite shift also.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation and thing to, I don't know, try to figure out and get a handle on. But ultimately, it comes down to educating, right? You as a parent need to educate yourself. If you're not reading labels, you need to read labels. You need to know what you are putting in your kid's body and your own body. And then, know what they are being served at the daycare or at school. And maybe become an advocate, become that active parent who wants to feed their children something better, something different. And how can we all learn and grow to make a difference for the little community that you're involved in? I mean, none of us are going to change the federal guidelines, right? None of us are going to change what the USDA decides is acceptable to be served in a daycare, but each provider can decide.
Right.
And often it comes down to money. People will say, oh, it's too expensive. It's too expensive to eat healthy. Junk is not cheap. I can tell you that.
Yeah, not at all. It's not at all. The price of McDonald's, saying that word again, has gone up. I think a meal's like $10. Like, it's insane. I wanted to come back to something. I think you guys had asked about educating parents and things like that, and I thought of it when we were all talking. Is one thing a lot of kids have is problems pooping, right? It's just a conversation. They're constipated. They haven't pooped. Did they poop? What their poop look like, right? And a big part of that is their nutrition or allergies, right? If their skin gets dry or eczema, different things like that, what are they eating? So, parents always tell me they haven't pooped in 3 days. They're really fussy. Their stomach hurts. And I'm like, that's why we eat vegetables, right? So that's a part of the education. that even comes up with just questions on their health, and pooping's a big one with kids.
Yet another reason PFF is your BFF.
Yeah. And the other thing also that I do and I educate parents on with infants, when you start introducing food to an infant, I always say start with the vegetables. Because if their first flavors and memories and brain forming is based on sweets from fruit, they're not going to want the vegetables. I mean, that's just my experience. There might be scientific data to back that up. But if you give a baby all their first foods are fruit, in my experience, they're not going to like the vegetables. It takes a lot more work. But if you give them the vegetables first, usually it's a lot easier to get them to eat them as they're toddlers.
That makes so much sense. Such a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I love that. I can totally see why and how your friendship has lasted since 5th grade. So congratulations to the two of you. I absolutely love hearing what Michelle and Michelle, the Wonder Twins, have to say. And this has just been a very beautiful, I'm very proud of both of you.
Aw. Well, thanks, friend.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I know, I mean, you are the mother of 2 small kids. So how do you manage in your very full life to get, nutrition and food as a priority into your kids' bodies?
So with Kyan, it's a little different because of her autism. She has sensory feeding issues, and so we eat a lot of chicken nuggets. That would be like the quote unquote like worst thing that we eat here. But the babies have always been raised on things like avocados, eggs. I mean, I just it just I don't do it, so they don't do it type of thing. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I ever ordered Burger King for them. I think Kyan was like 3 years old, and I remember going through the fast food line and looking, and I was just like, I don't even know what these babies would like from here. So it's just not a thing. I don't know.
Does your child with autism have like certain foods that, is it a little girl?
Yeah, and she has like one go-to thing, and they're called Z bars. They're like by I think they're Cliffs. Yeah,
Yeah.
but she loves Z bars. That's like the worst thing that she consumes, and she could eat like 50 Z bars in one sitting. But it's just we don't have junk here. They see bananas, they get excited. They see strawberries, they get excited. They see blueberries, they get even more excited. So
That's awesome. I've had a couple kids with autism in my class over the years, and like I had one little guy that just wanted orange food. Right? It was just all the orange things. So it didn't matter what it was as long as it was orange, like carrot sticks. But that was just challenging too, because it's just a little different. A lot of times I just let the little kids and infants do the sensory stuff. Parents don't like their kids to get messy, and sometimes it's cultural on like feeding a kid as an adult, feeding the child and not letting them do it. But from a young age, I just do all the senses and let them play in it and stuff. But that's awesome that you have all those fruits and veggies for them and they get excited.
Well, I mean, it just goes back to modeling, right? I mean, that's the thing. You know what you're exposed to, and the conversations and the messages. Michelle and I were talking about our experiences with gardening. I did not have a love of gardening like Michelle did because, I mean, I know mom and dad listen to this podcast every now and then, but I hated everything about it, which is why I didn't love vegetables, because we had a giant garden that we had to plant the seeds, mulch the garden, weed the garden, pick the stuff, clean the stuff, prepare. It was work. I liked nothing about it. So when it came time to eating it, I was like, I want nothing to do with this, because I had such a negative association with it. Now, going along the ridge and picking raspberries off the bush, oh, I love that. That's really easy. I didn't have to do anything for that, but pick raspberries and eat deliciousness. A garden in a hot, humid Wisconsin summer is disgusting. Mosquitoes and moldy mulch. And it was not joy for me. So I mean, I would say vegetables were not a real thing in my life probably until my late 20s, honestly.
Those mosquitoes.
Well, I am super excited to have you back on the show so there are gardening. I'd like to talk to you about that. Obviously, your transition into the movement that you have gone from your, whatever it was before, now you're doing Ironmans, which is one of my goals someday to be able to accomplish one of those. So I'm super excited to have you back. Like I've mentioned before, it's incredible to be a part or to witness a friendship that is so strong and sturdy and healthy between two healthy individuals. And kudos to the two of you for continuously working on yourselves so that you can emulate that to those around you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Sasha. And I mean, I'll say, Michelle and I were disconnected for a long, long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of you have no idea that there was life prior to social media. There was. We didn't have the ability to stay connected like we do now. But for all of my distaste with social media, that is one of the benefits.
Right.
It was really great to get to reconnect in that way. Actually got to just share Michelle's 50th birthday with her a few months ago and got to see her amazing setup and witness what she does with the kids. So I love it when you send me pictures of the kids eating their PFF and little videos of them talking about it. It really, it is inspiring to know that this kind of thing is happening. I know you're doing it. I know there are others around the country who are doing it as well. I hope at some point we can transition so that it is the norm instead of the exception,
Right.
which is my guess is what it is. I'm also guessing there are some parents who are like, well, that all sounds really great, but we live real life and we're busy, or I'm a single mom and I don't have time to educate my kids about food and
Mm-hmm.
grow things in my planter boxes and get to eat it. So maybe let's wrap this up, Michelle, with just a couple of simple takeaways. I know you have already offered some really great ones, but maybe is there one or two more for anybody out there who just is like, maybe I can do one thing.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, just start small. You don't have to have like everything perfect, but start small. So we've all talked about eating in the car, right? Being busy. We're all busy. We're busier now than ever before. So even if you plan out a few snacks for the week that you can plan and prep them and just, carrot sticks, celery, whatever, in little Ziploc bags, little silicone reusable bags, just to prepare them ahead of time. So when you're on the go, you can just grab them really easy, like those go-to snacks. Z bars are awesome. I love Cliff bars too, but having just healthy snacks that you can grab in a pinch. It doesn't have to be big. Just make little small changes, and just let it grow from there.
It's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for spending some time with us this morning. I always love our conversations, and it was really fun to have you on here and get to share the things that you're doing and just the bits of journey that you've been on. And I know there is more to come, and I'm excited for all of that.
Right.
And as Sasha said, I think we definitely need to have you back on to talk about the other elements of fitness and just your personal stuff, not necessarily to do with the kids.
And I would love to talk to Sasha about getting you to that Ironman finish line. I've done some coaching too. I love all aspects. I love watching women's journey, men too, but just seeing women come through this journey is amazing. So I'd love to talk with you about that, get you there.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful connection. Fantastic. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up today. There's a lot there to digest. So take a little time, listen again, write down a couple of things that maybe either you as an adult, whether you have kids or not, or you as a parent are willing to make a change on, to see if we can nourish ourselves and our little beings a little better so that we can all go on to be better beings. And I hope you'll really take that under consideration today. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a great rest of your
Have
day.
a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.